There you go. Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing? So, what are we up today? We will talk about healing aggression, and it sounds complicated. It is complicated, so we're gonna work on that. Um, Hi everyone. I'm Roman with Holistic Dog Training. We're still in the remodeling phase, but we're getting there. So sorry, my background. So, um, how you guys doing today? I'm still with my coffee. My dog is showing in the background. Hmm, you cannot hear me. Let me fix that. One, two, one, two. Oh, that must be much better now. Works better now? We got this. So, hi, this is Ron with Holistic Dog Training. I'm here in Eugene, Oregon. And today I would like to talk about healing trauma and healing your dog's trauma and understand why trauma happens. And I know it's kind of complicated, and I know some people get frustrated when I'm talking about dogs and trauma because sometimes they believe dogs cannot have trauma, but they do. And it starts on the very, very beginning of the lifetime, even before that. So let's say, for example, we are having a dog in a breeding facility, and the female, the mother of that future dog, is in this cage, living with other dogs in cages in horrible conditions. We are experiencing trauma on that dog, and this stressful situation, this stressful environment, is genetically transferred to the upcoming generation. So we have a prenatal trauma happening right there. Even the puppy is not even born yet. He gets those vibes, let's call it simple, in his genetic configuration. And what's going to happen next? The puppy will be born. Will be born in this stressful environment. And from there, usually, they're being quickly separated, um, which means the puppy is not going through emotional development, which causes other issues. We know already, like science already confirmed children who come in very complicated, traumatic families and going through these unacceptable experiences in their homes, or children who come very early into the foster system, they're all struggling with it. Good question, Maynard. Both. They're just traumatized in any aspect, physically, emotionally. And when going through this phase, we see that a puppy is growing up in this stressful environment with no nurturing, basically not even health nutrition. And that will carry on basically throughout his first most important 8 weeks that are legally binded to have the dog not sold, not sold to other people. However, that cow goes, you know, once the puppy can walk and it's cute, it's already being sold weeks 6, 7, 8, right? And there is no emotional education in that part. So that puppy grows up in an environment that's very stressful, that's already in an entire phasma traumatized with not even proper nutrition. His emotional development, his brain development is not in proper balance. And so these dogs end up in a home. And well, the first thing people will experience is a huge amount of stress and fear coming into the equation because the puppy cannot process what's happening there. The puppy doesn't have structure in place. There's nothing in place that puppy has learned so far. And people, of course, they want the dog plug and play, right? Just a plug. And of course, it will not work for the simple reason that people have expectations. They are not educated what to do with it, and they start being forceful. How else can you navigate around an aggressive dog who's basically going after your hands, after your kids, after your cat, after your other dog? He's being just all over the place. Now, of course, people says and blame people. Well, you should train your dog. Well, here's the magic thing. Those dogs cannot be simply trained because they don't have the emotional capacity to process what's happening around them. So they're already triggered with environmental factors, and all these things is being problematic. So these people who try to train that dog and this trainer who tries to help that dog will fail. And here's why. Because our mindset is a dog who's misbehaving needs to be trained in obedience so he can follow instructions. But here is the fallout is that dog doesn't actually understand authority. He doesn't understand what this person's trying to tell him because he already lacks on social cues. He doesn't feel what the other person feels. He doesn't understand that his actions affect his environment because he's never had a feedback. And of course, how can he be obedient? And I even don't like the term obedient because obedience has a consequence, which is usually punishment. If you don't, then that. So it's a fear based situation. Compliance, we don't even talk about compliance because the dog doesn't have any morals and ethical background. So he just does whatever he is being triggered by. There is no thought behind his emotions. His emotions suddenly come up, and his emotions will be expressed in behaviors that are unregulated, and they just come up like a ticking time bomb anytime and anytime. So we see that that's already a complex situation. So we're looking at the complex trauma, right? Now, what is a trauma if you look at closer? A trauma is a frightening, dangerous, or violent event that poses a threat to a dog's life or bodily integrity. And why I mention that? Because the moment the dog leaves his secure base, even if that is in a mess that it is, he's usually lost in space, going into a new place who is scary and looks dangerous because these people don't make any sense. He never is being with people. So you see, there's already a shock event right there that's happening, and those people who get that dog don't even have a clue. And many behaviors and trainers will come in for to help those families will not see it coming because usually families don't talk about it. The first question you have to ask the family: how did you acquire that dog? How did this dog end up in your hands? What is the story of this dog? Oh, we got him from a breeder. Oh, cool. Okay. Have you visited that breeder in person? Yeah, we came to his house and he brought out the puppies. So you don't know what happened inside. You don't know what the conditions were inside. You don't even know if his parents were there. Well, these parents were a little bit aggressive. Huh, interesting. So these parents were so aggressive that they couldn't be out meeting people. So that dog has eventually a negative response there. If somebody came to his house, those parents will go nuts, which that's the message the puppy gets. Puppy sees, puppy does. And from that perspective, we're going to see that we don't even know the core behaviors of those dogs, what those dogs basically genetically got imprinted with. And you take that dog home, right? Or the other thing that I heard recently is, yeah, the mother had to leave, had gone back to his owner. So the female dog was transported to the male dog for breeding purposes, and once they were bred, the owner wanted his dog back, so the dog went back to his regular owner, leaving the puppies without the mother. That's already red flags. There are so many red flags right there. So when we talk about healing those processes, what does it actually mean? It comes from a broad experience of trauma And I am a complex trauma survivor myself, so I've been through all these little processes, and I kind of can empathize how it looks like. And yes, I'm comparing dogs with humans because they are very similar, so similar that we more likely compare dogs with humans than we compare humans with apes because of their emotional structure and the way their family structures are working. And I was I was amazed in the very beginning how dissociated we are with those issues. We don't want to see it. We don't want to accept and take the blame, or we don't accept the failure that we did, and so we just numb it down. Oh, I see you guys have already a lot of questions. Okay, congratulations. And you have a 22-month-old Great Pyrenees. They get along well. They're always supervised. Hold on. Let's talk about that a little bit because we're talking about that already. When you get this dog in your home, the healing process has to start. What does supervision mean? I see dogs playing with each other. I'm supervising them. What exactly are we looking for before we intervene? For example, I saw a video a couple of days ago that um, a puppy literally was dragging like from his scarf um, through the yard by the adult dog who was in the family, and at the same time, the puppy was playing in return. It was fun to watch, somebody will think. But the reality was that the adult dog didn't have any parenting skills because he was not educated. And we have to see that dogs' parenting skills are not coming in generational, they're coming educational. So the dog has to learn those skills from his environment. He observes as a um, adult adolescent. Sorry, my English. As a second generation puppy, observing the parents taking care of the first generation puppies, the other way around. The first generation dog, the second generation dog. So the elder siblings watching the younger siblings being parented by the parents. So they learn from it, right? And what's happening next is if that is missing, then that dog has no clue what to do with that puppy. It gets overwhelmed. So he's roughhousing with him to the level that he thinks he can play with adult dogs. Right? Confirmed. So we have to be very careful that while they're playing, they're supposed to get this moral and ethical social education they should get. And we need to teach them. And we're going to talk. I have actually a workshop coming up. Um, and yeah, let me give you a heads up here. If you go to my website on this rolling screen underneath, holisticdogtraining.org/events, you're going to find a workshop. It's called Behavior Healing. Let me actually share it with you so you can see what you likely will see at. And we're going to talk about healing aggressive behavior with the concept of teaching the dog things that were missing from the very beginning. So that workshop is on January 16. I highly recommend you guys watch that because it's a lot of information, new concepts, okay, that will change the way you perceive your dog and the way you change perceiving aggression in general. And well, what we learn here is we basically understand why dogs become aggressive. And I know many people says, yeah, well, aggression. It's if you ask 300 people, you had 300 different versions of aggressive. I kind of was able to conceptualize that with a very specific concept. Okay, what is aggression? It's aggression is not what we see is happening; it's what the reason why it's happening. This is what's happening with aggression. And then we're going to talk about episodic memory and how it's affecting the dog's behavior. We also recognize patterns in those behaviors and how to heal those patterns. We're going to talk about how to improve communication with your dog because, as we talked before, those missing skills and concepts need to be replaced with healthier concepts. And then we're going to talk about how to read, how common training techniques can be set for the dogs that can set boom. Training techniques can make the dog fail in that system, and what to do instead, because we approach dog training very strict and very linear, and it's not. We're not paying attention to emotions, we're just paying attention to obedience. If a dog is obedience, that's fine, then he's a good dog, but it's not the reality. um, how to read and reply to dogs' body language signals. And we have to bind down and recognize what signals are we looking for. Are we looking just tail wagging? Are we looking just the ears and eyes? What about the rest of the body? The whole dog is a speaking library of emotions, and we have to kind of pay attention to. And then the other thing is how do you reply to those signals? Because everybody knows how to read the signals, but nobody knows how to reply to them. Because replying to those signals is important, especially if you have to create a bond with that dog. And then we're going to talk about what it takes to heal that dog and heal that problems that are created. And well, we start at 3 o'clock Pacific time. And if you don't know what your time is, you just click here on that link and it's gonna show up at your time zone. Okay, I tried to make it simple for you guys. So the cost is $75 and it's totally worth the investment. um, yeah, that for now. Sorry, I'm kind of too much talking since yesterday. Um, yep, I agree, Patty. So and we're going to talk about that things, and following that you're going to see also in the workshop there is also a puppy workshop coming up and an adoption workshop that comes in after that. Some people who take dogs in from rescue recognize the trauma that is happening when they adopt a dog, because you can recognize trauma, you can reverse engineer it and see where it's coming from, so you know what you need to work on. Kelly, I found it a hard way that the trainers need to understand the breed. You can't take a Pyrenees to an obedience school that generally specializes in guard. Yeah, uh, I had a phone call yesterday actually for a lady who has a hunting dog, and she was reaching out trying to um, get instructions from me how to use a shock collar. Where she hit home there, right? And I was trying to explain to her that you don't need a shock collar to train your hunting dog. How did we train hunting dogs for the last 50,000 years, right? Now all of a sudden we cannot do without it. It's kind of telling me if I don't have a phone, I cannot talk to my parents. Yes, you can. You just go there, you just establish a relationship. Anyway, she decided to go somewhere else. You cannot help sometimes. All you have to do, you just spread the seed, telling her, these things are dangerous. And I know this person will cause her dog trauma and she doesn't even know about it. Um, yeah, and especially if we have multiple dogs in the household, those traumas can be a little bit more intense. It can pop up in unexpected ways as the puppies get older. Now, the way my healing approach is, and it's very different than most approaches. It's a attachment-based trauma-informed intervention that is basically designed to meet the complex needs of vulnerable dogs who have experienced trauma. Because my standard is the dog has trauma. Prove me that he has not trauma, kind of thing. Like he comes with trauma because he has been removed from his family without his consent. The trauma starts there, right? Then there are other things that come into place because we don't pay attention to that. Hi, Taz. In your adopted a dog course, will you address the use of sedatives in shelters to calm the dogs? Yes, actually, we're going to talk about that. And especially with my wife, I will have my wife chiming in because we did the last workshop that we did at Austin Shelter with Friends of Austin Shelter in Texas, in Austin, Texas. And we literally use Reiki to calm those dogs down. And there's a video footage of those dogs in unit number 6, if I remember right. Hi, Taz. Missed you guys. um, to basically calm those dogs down because of adding a calming energy into it. So it's very important to understand, and also if you have rescues or you have a boarding facility, to understand what those dogs are struggling with, because those dogs in the shelters, and we're going to talk about this in this workshop too, in this healing aggression workshop, to see the concept of an institutionalized dog. It's not different than an institutionalized child that is being born basically in the system. And from there, we will recognize what are the issues that come with it. We cannot expect a child that grew up in the system to be as normal as every other child that grew up in a loving family. I grew up in the system for a short period of time, but the system affected me. I've been in an abuse situation in that system. I was not able to go in a home. I was in a confined space, forced into religion, forced into abuse, and I couldn't get out of there. So, no matter how your situation is, if you're not growing up in a loving, understanding, complete family, there's a complete family, there's an incomplete family. Incomplete families, for example, where there's only one generation of people in that family system. There's only a parent, there are no grandparents involved. There is no education coming in from people who are experienced in parenting. So you have the first parent the child, and it doesn't have support from his own parents who have done this before, right? And so it comes in the same way as dogs who have to play with dogs they don't know nothing about. So we expect their parenting to be there, but it's not. So, and that or more things. And that's why you will see that workshop that we're going to do, that's a healing aggression, is actually a 3-hour workshop. 2.5 hours basically is we're going through the process, understanding all these concepts. Okay. And yes, I do have a mentorship as well for that program. I just give you a heads up, an overview, because some of you guys know certain things. I just help you see that on a chart, so you can see things. So you can, oh, I have that, and I have this. Oh, I missed this, or I missed that, and then I'm happy to help you going through this process. We have new rescues pup coming today from an environment of trauma. Thank you for pointing that out. However, out of owner out of prison for murder, threatening to shoot the young puppy while family in trauma. Yeah, those domestic violence cases are very complicated. I have a couple of examples that I can share with you. I can do one now if you want. If you want me, I can give you a couple of examples. Just let me know. And yeah, a few shelters in Colorado have replaced using prescription sedation with CBD, and have not looked into results, but I'm very curious. Well, um, going through the process of looking for alternative supplements, I noticed one thing: people try to find the easy way out, and including shelters. So they see treatment of this kind of stress and behaviors as a one thing. Oh, I get them CBD oil. Put CBD oil more in the food, more, right? um, we don't see it as a system. The way the kennel is being structured, the way the individual interactions with each dog is structured. Food is an important factor in trauma dogs. Food is a medicine. And I know many shelters feed twice a day because of the way the system works. They will not be able. But if I have a dog with trauma in treatment, I try to feed them as many times as possible their meal over the day. A little bit more sometimes, because their system works differently. Because of that severe trauma, the body system is not working healthy. And even if we add supplements, as Gelly suggests here, we have to see this as a whole system, not as individual ingredient. It's kind of like, oh, I need a car. Okay, let's get some tires. Let's drive around. Sure, What about the chair? And what about the steering wheel? How about the gears? How about the windshield, the doors? That is a car, not just the tires. So if you have mobility problem, tires will not fix it because you need the solid structure underneath, right? um, I believe there is also a situation of dogs who grew up in a good home with good intentions, but hit the adolescent stage and get surrendered. Yeah, that's a very classic example. Thank you for pointing it out. Let's see, for example, that people are not aware of that dogs are in a forced relationship in their home that are in. And naturally, the dogs, from the genetics, from the evolution, once they hit that mark of adolescent or being sexually mature, they want to move away from the family. They want to create their own family. It's, they're kind of like more self-sufficient dogs. They want to do things on their own. They don't need that family. And we have this with humans too. All of a sudden, we have these conflicts with authority. No, I'm gonna do it my way. Yeah, it's cool. Do it your way. And then we have those conflicts. Yo, mom, I want my car. Can I have your car? I need some money, right? So dogs are different with humans in that case because their social uh, connection to the environment is different. The dog will be mature trying to get mated with somebody outside of the family, which is natural. We don't want, inbreeding, and the dog needs to get out. And all of a sudden, people says, "Why is my dog escaping? Why is my dog reactive to my family? What's going on? My dog stops paying attention to me, right?" And we don't recognize that you have to be patient because you're forcing the dog into a forced relationship. He cannot get out. He's trapped. So that can cause trauma if you're not handling it correctly, because people get violent about it. Well, the dog is not following instructions. Well, we're going to use a spray bottle. We're going to use a shaker can. Some people will use a shock collar. Only thing what they create is basically a fear-based relationship, which causes a trauma on top of the trauma, and then it goes downhill from there. So my program is basically more changing the whole concept of being proactive rather than reactive, because everything that you see out there is it's reactive. If your dog jumps on people, you do this. If your dog is pulling on the leash, you do that. But nobody tells you how to educate your dog, not how to train your dog, how to educate your dog to see that as a job description, to think instead of just emotion come up in unregulated, because you have to see the whole concept as a as a square of trigger, thought, emotion, behavior. In that concept, the dog needs to understand what to do with the trigger, what thoughts would come up, what emotions will follow, and what behavior is appropriated based on that emotion is connected to that thought in relationship to that trigger. I'll give you a simple example. That What if I tell you right now, there's a guy outside at your car looking into your car? What will be the first thing that comes into your mind, right? And that's biased because you make that assumption that this person wants to steal your car. What if I tell you that's a security guard and he saw the light on and he's just checking to see if that's the light on or it looks like? So that person is not a bad person. You just made the assumption he is. You thought about it. That's why you're locking your car. That's why you put your car in your own driveway, because you are resource guarding. So you are aggressive. And because of that mindset of kind of subtle aggression, now you accuse everybody else to be as aggressive as you expect them to be. So you have already there an expectation. Why would the dog not have an expectations? Why would the dog trust you just because you adopted a dog? So if we don't build that relationship from a very base and we create that settled emotional structure so the dog can rely on that, feel safe, feel nurtured, that all his needs are met, then we will not be able to get to the result. So my approach is here basically empowering my clients to meet the dog's hierarchy of need first before we do anything else. And that's why my first question is, what are you feeding your dog? How much exercise you give your dog? What's your concept of interactions? How do you play with your dog? What does your dog know from you? Can you feel your dog? What's your dog's story, adoption story? rescue story? What's there going on? What is the experience until today that we're talking together? So if we don't know that, then we cannot change a dog. And usually what's happening, we are biased on a dog's behavior. A dog growls, we see aggression. A dog barks, we see him being also aggressive sometimes. We don't see that the dog is being born with a tendency of using his behavior traits in a way that he has learned to use them. So we need to also to understand that we have behavior traits that work on a sliding scale, like persistence. If we push it too far on the other side, we call it stubbornness. But persistence is what gets a hunting dog get the prey. What's wrong with that? It's because it's not to our convenience, therefore it's a problem. But we can teach the dog to be persistent following the rules that we set in the family. And then we're complaining because he barks if we're late to feeding. So everything is interlinked together. So we have to see that connection. So my upcoming workshop is geared towards understanding the concept of aggression. I'll give you a hint. Aggression is a tool to survive. Everybody has aggression. And your dog has aggression, and you has aggression, and your child has, everybody has aggression. It's something normal. But it can go beyond normal based on our society and social structure because the way we see it. I'll give you an example. What do you need to be first on the test? What do you need to park your car in front of the shopping center? What do you need to make more money? You need aggression. And I was the one telling everyone aggression is an illusion. Aggression doesn't exist because dogs are not aggressive. Little did I know. And then I came along with, what are you looking for, buddy? Come here. What's up? With Conrad Lawrence, and he basically opened my mind. I was like, oh, wait a minute. He's right. In order to survive, you have to be aggressive, but also you have to manage your emotions because aggression plus emotion is action. So if I'm aggressively looking for a parking spot and drive over people, that's not good. But if I'm patient sitting in front of my parking spot until it's free, that's also part of aggression, which is very good type of aggression. Or I can manifest my parking spot. I can put my parking hat on. I was like, I'm going to manifest my parking spot. I'm aggressively addressing my intentions towards the universe. I need a parking spot right now in front of the shopping center. I guarantee you I get one. I usually get one most of the times, like 90% of the times. I guarantee you. My wife is like, oh, Roman has already his hat on. So we will talk about these things because you have the right to know. Everybody has the right to know. But nobody's pointing it out because the way the system is placed is for you to feel in power but not being empowered, right? And how many times trainers come into the house and take over? What are you looking for over there? Huh? And trainers come to the house and basically take over the dog, disempowering the client. Why is that? It's we shouldn't. The power has to stay with the parents. They need to learn and educate, being educated how to handle those things with their dogs. And so it's very important that we teach that. You cannot train it. It needs to be educated. On the other side, what we also will see is that sometimes people know these things. They use it every day at work. So if you guys are interested in a mentorship, you're going to see that we're going to talk a lot about personal trauma that everybody has, which leads sometimes to be ego a lot, right? And we're going to talk about that too, that even many trainers are narcissists. Why? Because they have been through so much trauma, and the only way out is to control things as much as possible. And yes, we can say that some dogs are narcissistic of nature. Not really. But the concept is the same. If I cannot control it, it's going to kill me. So therefore, I'm going to control everything as much as I can. And even if I have to get violent about it, because if I don't do it, it's going to kill me. But I'm not here to talk about narcissism, but just pointing it out that if we see many trainers to have an intense ego, and I was one of them, maybe a little bit still, we have to see it comes in with a trauma package. And each client you're working with and each doc you're working with, you're healing all the directions. You're healing the client, you're healing the doc, you're healing yourself. It's a healing process. And I think I cannot find a better word out of it, okay? Because I don't like the training aspect of it. I have to use it in my website and my structure because people will not get it otherwise, because we're looking for training, we're looking for a trainer, we're looking to train the dog, but in reality, you're looking for a behavior healer, we're looking for a healing a behavior, we're looking for a trauma in a dog, because that's what the reality is. But it's easier to shock a dog, it's easier to punish a dog because that's the way easier, going out faster, but it's also short term. It's scientifically proven that using force is not helping. And that's why we have to go through a healing process. Well, this is where morals and ethics comes in. Because sometimes I'm going to give up my parking spot for a person who is handicapped and doesn't have a handicap spot. Take mine. I'll help you out. And yes, you can apply this concept, Billy, to dogs, and you do that already with your workshops. Because at the same time, how do we teach a dog morals and ethics? How do we teach a dog just because you saw it, you cannot have it? How do we teach a dog a concept of wait for your turn? And it's nothing wrong. It doesn't have to come with punishment. But how do we teach a dog patience? It's a concept. It's not inbred because dogs' breeding concept is take it now or it's gone. That's nature. Because if you don't take it, somebody else will take it. Well, it's free. Everybody can claim it. But at the same time, you cannot punish your dog for showing you resource guarding that you want to take away that he found that you call your remote control. But if it was yours, why don't you hold it in your hands? If a dog owns something, he's holding it, sitting on it, on his next to it. But you left your glasses on the table and walked away. You put your shoes on the floor and walked away. Remote control full of pizza flavor from yesterday and you walk away. And so there are so many things that we have addressed. And healing process is not just training. Nutrition. How do we adjust nutrition to the dog? This is number one we have to start with. How do we adjust the dog building trust to the person, to the handler? How do we build that up? So that workshop basically gives you an overview, but the mentorship program gives you the tools. And even if you are way educated and you have lots of experience, it will be such an amazing tool. It's kind of like suddenly, instead of having an X-ray, you have an MRI. Well, that's cool. Instead of having a scalpel, you have a laser in your toolbox. So we were talking about the shift of tools that you have in your toolbox addressing aggression goes exponential. And this is why I can help people remotely and don't even have to be in person because I don't need to do things. All I have to do is transmit that information, that concept, putting together a behavior plan that helps the people connect with the dogs, creating that secure attachment bond and helping people understand the trauma the dog is being through so they understand the concept. You have to see through your emotional intelligence what the dog is going through instead of accusing you of being an asshole. How many times have you seen on post, my dog is a jerk, my dog does this? Like, dude, don't you see? You're disconnected. You don't see the problem here. You're not the victim. The dog is the victim. Even if the dog bites you, your dog is the victim because he uses aggression to get out of it because he thought he doesn't gonna survive with it. And I hear this all the time. People saying, well, I tried my best. My dog doesn't have trauma. Why? Don't take it personally. You're not personally responsible for your dog's trauma most of the times, right? But do you put your dog in a crate? Okay. Do you put your dog in a crate when you leave the house? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if your dog pulls on a leash, you give him a little correction because he shouldn't supposed to do that. So you have already some expectations. You have already projections on your dog, right? And of course, you're feeding certain foods that you think are right. But all these things, without you knowing, undermine your relationship slowly, slowly, and corrode it. And all of a sudden, it's going to collapse. Because if the dog doesn't trust you in crisis, you think your dog is safe, but your dog doesn't feel safe. There are two different components. It's kind of like in a relationship. What I love my wife. That's an assumption. You love your wife. Okay, that's what you do. Does she get that message the way she needs it? Your dog is cared for and you love your dog, but can you love your dog the way your dog perceives it as love? Just because you want to do it that way, just because you pat the dog on the head, that's not love. That's just patting your dog on the head. Affection is different. Grooming is affection. Grooming your dog and personally interact with your dog, sharing his chew toy with him, like one on one, that's kind of very personal. A dog will see that different. You and me are doing the same thing at the same time. Sometimes, if you see your dog doing something and you do that too, your dog is like, oh, wow, you do the same thing I do. It feels different. Try it. Sometimes you will see that some dogs will change what they're doing because you did exactly what they did. But they don't do it negatively. They do it, they add another word into that concept, right? What would your dog do if you lay flat on the floor? What would you do if your dog see you going on your knees? What would your dog do if you give him a play ball? You don't have a tail. It's a little bit confusing. We're going to talk about that at some point. Do you know what your dog thinks? Can we actually see what the dog is thinking? Yes, you can. Actually, we have an exercise in this workshop. They're going to show you how to predict your dog's thoughts and how you be able to associate your dog's thoughts with his emotions, with his actions, and reverse teach your dog what each action and each emotion and each thought is being called. So, theoretically speaking, if you call your dog to you without your dog having separation anxiety, then you're not teaching your dog come. You're teaching the dog whatever. Sometimes you teach your dog there's an opportunity, but it doesn't come with you, it comes with a treat. Make sense? And I'm not saying you have to make your dog suffer with separation anxiety, but separation anxiety is something very natural to a certain amount. Like stress is needed in a healthy amount. Exactly. So many people see the perception how people think dogs thinking, but not really go to the concept seeing how dogs think, really. So how can you tell your dog fetch something if you take it away later? It's kind of counterproductive. And then you wonder why your dog's struggling with it. Why would the dog take something away from your hand if you really need it? Some dogs will say, well, if you really need it, I'm not touching it. Or some dogs have trauma and says, well, I don't know what you're going to do with my hand. You're going to slap me or something. If you want to toss the treat, and he's like, ah. So I would love to see you at the workshop, and I would love you to share it because many people are fascinated by this, but nobody shares it. I mean, I get it. You want to keep it for yourself, right? So don't share it. Secret. Don't tell anyone. That usually gets it further, right? There's a gossip travels faster than the truth, right? I think I saw it somewhere in a movie. Lies travel faster than truths. That's interesting. Um, Yeah, what do you think so far? I mean, you guys are very active today, and I appreciate. I see Billy from um, LinkedIn. I got it. Facebook, Patty, and Kelly from Facebook, right? Oh, you guys, if you are guys in New York, you should stop by Taz office, um, pet shop. Um, I don't recall the pet shop right now. Um, I have it in my tongue, but I can't get it out. My apologies. Taz, put your link, put your website link on. So she has a super healthy pet shop. Pet shop. Yeah, I hate that word. Um, House animal shop. Healthy foods, and she's very involved in healthy nutrition. So if I have people in New York and I work with them, send them their way so they can get healthy food. And Billy also is very involved with um, behaviors and healing behaviors through cognitive behavior therapy. Super interesting. You guys should check it out. So, what do we have? Michael. Yeah, but again, we will talk about that. How much energy, how can we play with energy? People are not aware that doing a healing aspect, a healing energy on a dog can be a little bit intrusive if we want to heal the dog without actually the dog is consent. Um, when my wife and I do healing on animals and we tap into that, we actually come in first with a concept of consent. Do you want to have a healing session today? Yes or no? And the other thing that we see is also recognizing that some dogs are so sensitive to energy that they will pick up as soon as you tap in, and they actually can be reactive, right? So we have to be very careful the way we do that and the way we approach the healing process, and always keep in mind that you do a healing aspect not only for the dog. I have seen dog redirecting that energy towards their people. They have these abilities. Oh, it's blurry. Okay. Well, if you go to my website, you see the link below, holisticdoctoring.org events. um, I'm gonna post more events this week. I just have to spread it out on my calendar because I have some projects coming up in the very near future, and I have to focus on that too. But um, healing for animals is on a list, or is coming up soon. I have to find the date with my wife that she's available. We're gonna do healing energy for animals, specific for animals, understanding how energy works, how dogs perceive the energy, and at the same time, I'm gonna look for is um, adoption and how to successful bring the dog through the first adoption period. The other thing that we look for is healing aggression. And one thing we're going to look for is parenting skills, because we always expect the dog to be certified AKC, blah, 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 but we don't have a program that supports people to be the parents they can be for their dogs, right? And so it's not um, exactly actually nice tapped in. I haven't seen you in my workshop, so yeah, you're picking up on stuff. One of those workshops about healing animals, you're going to recognize we have behavior traits, we have breed traits, and we have spiritual traits of dogs. I know about dogs also. I see some other species that are sentient beings. So see, for example, Michael, um, we have 9 categories on those spiritual traits. You have a teacher. I'll give you an example later. Then you have a teacher healer. Then you have a teacher companion. And then you go up like it's 1, 2, 3, and then you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. On number 4, you have a healer teacher, Previous you had a teacher, now you have a healer teacher, then you have a healer, and then you have a healer companion, and then you go up to seven. You're going to find a companion teacher, companion healer, and companion. And why, the reason why I have that is, see, for example, you have a teacher who has a relationship with you, and he is here to send you a lesson, a teaching moment. That dog, to convey that message, can actually hurt you to convey that message. A healer is not aligned in hurting you, he's only aligned in healing you. So his way of convey that message is different. So while the teacher will be able to bite you to get the message across, the healer teacher makes you uncomfortable to get the message across. And the companion teacher will basically avoid you to send you the message. Interesting, right? And then if you have, for example, a teacher companion, right, number three, that dog, for example, in order to convey a message, will stare you down. I'm watching you. I'm watching what you're doing. You know I'm pissed, right? A healer companion will just be there showing you his emotions, how he feels about what's happening. And equivalent, a companion, like, I'm out of here. I want nothing to do with it. So you see, understanding this concept at the very beginning, if you adopt a dog and recognizing those attributes, besides the archetypes, it's another story. We're going to talk about that when going through a healing process. You can actually do an assessment on the dog and see that what the dog's potential, and you can actually measure it. Can I measure if my dog is a healer or a companion or a teacher? Yes, you can. It's very delicate because you have to be aware of all the breed traits and not confusing your emotions with the dog's emotions. So you need to be able to separate your emotions with the dog's emotions, and your body language and your body pain, and compared with another one. So empathy is a very important skill for that, but something you can learn. You have it in you, but you haven't activated it yet. So if you do the mentorship program, you actually learn how to activate those skills you have, because either they're suppressed, either they were punished away from you, or you were being intimidated for it. Doesn't mean you don't have them. Good. So Taffy, thank you for pointing it out. So you closed your shop. You know what? It's tough out there, but I think doing food consulting is much a better options, because you can help all the people all over the world. You don't need kind of stuck to your office, or you, and still you can send referrals. Good to know. Okay, thanks for the update. And yeah, you I have to call you back on the show one day. We have to catch up with things, right? Remember a couple of years ago we did our food show. We're gonna do one again whenever you're available. Good. Yeah, we talked a lot today, and looking forward to see you guys. And um, yep, I hope you had fun. My coffee is empty, and yep, we need to go. So thanks again for joining us today, and looking forward to see you guys soon.